Salute is a program for and about men and women who have served our country. Our program includes news about the laws that affect veterans, information on benefits and services, and news from veterans organizations. And now, our host, Bob Peters.
Hello and welcome to Salute. I'm your host, Bob Peters, and today with me is one of the greatest generation players, Howard Heebner, right?
Right.
He is awarded the Bronze Star. He was a paratrooper, D-Day.
Yes.
And I'm glad to have you here, sir.
Glad to be here,
And
Bob.
thank you for everything you've done for our country.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're looking forward to you telling us your story. So let's start with the beginning. When did you go in? And
I went into the service in 1943. And I went to Fort Custer, Michigan, and then to Camp Wheeler, Georgia for my basic training. 8 weeks of basic training. When that was finished, why, they wanted to know if somebody wanted, some of the fellows wanted to join the paratroops. Well, the uniform looked pretty good. The money, $50 extra a month, was real big. Looked like Pikes Peak in Colorado. And then I volunteered and they sent us to Fort Benning, Georgia. There we trained for 4 weeks. And then I was sent to Alliance, Nebraska, to the 507 Parachute Infantry Regiment. We weren't attached to any unit except the regiment. There we trained, we made jumps for war bonds, and we trained. And Alliance, Nebraska, the land is flat, and it's sandy, and there's a lot of cacti there. We went up into the Black Hills in October, I believe it was. We were up there for 2 weeks training in the hills and in the mountains. We were stationed at a little lake that the first white man came to. There was 13 of them and one white woman stayed at this little lake. And it wasn't too far from Mount Rushmore. We walked up there. We trained in the mountains. And then when we came back, why, we all got a 2-week furlough.
You had no idea what the mission was going to be that you were going on at that time, did you?
No, we were training, and of course we heard what was going on in Europe and in the Pacific. But we knew someday we would be going someplace into war, into combat. After our vacation, we were sent to Camp Shanks, New York. We spent time there and then sent overseas. And we trained, went to Port Rush, Ireland. We trained there. A lot of cliffs along there and old castles. And yes.
That ship you went over, remember the ship you went over on? I'm trying to remember it too because I was on it. It was stationed in it's in port over there in San Francisco.
I can't remember the name of it, Bob.
I know I can't either, but
sorry.
I know they brought it back over for the 50th anniversary.
Yeah.
You know, it was still floating back then. But okay, we should tell everybody the mission was Operation Overlord. D-Day, as they
Yes,
know it.
yes.
And the history of D-Day always amazed me, you know. I mean, they set up a fake base somewhere so the Germans would think that all the tanks were over there and this and that, and all of the planes. And I want you to tell me about your mission.
Well, a lot of this fake stuff come from the British. Along the British coastline, they had tanks, they had trucks, and everything else.
But they weren't real. Some of them weren't real.
They were all rubber.
Yeah. It was amazing.
This is the British were good for fake stuff. Well, before we jumped, why they had taken dummies over there and threw them out of these airplanes.
They're about 3 feet. I've
Three,
seen
4
that. I've
foot
seen,
long.
believe it or not, I've seen one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To goof up the Germans. Well, we trained at Nottingham, and which was an old castle there, and then we went to our prison. I call it a prison. It was an airfield, but there was American guards there and barbed wire around it, and we couldn't get out, and you could only get in one way if you were a bigwig in the American Army or the British, and it was like a prison. But we had, the fellas played football, basketball, baseball, and we had everything. We had a little movie in there, and we were occupied until the right day come along. We studied the area that we were going to jump in Normandy on sand tables they had set up, and we knew that area about 1 mile by 2 miles square. But I don't think anybody ever landed in the area they were supposed to.
Yeah.
Things were hectic, and a lot of the fellas blamed it on to the pilots, but it wasn't the pilots' fault. It was the conditions over there.
Yeah.
When we going over the English Channel, fine. You could look down and see the boats down there. It looked like somebody threw a bunch of corks in a bathtub. I never seen so many boats. The White Cliffs of Dover, there they go. You could see them. But when we hit the coastline up by the Cotentin Peninsula in France, we had a bank of fog. There was no lights on the airplane except on each wing. Tip of the wings was a little light. And that
So
was
the other
only,
planes could see each other.
that's all.
Yeah.
And when they hit that fog bank, this one captain on one of the airplanes, he got up and he looked out the window and he couldn't see nothing. He could hardly see the tip of the wing on the airplane. And well, they started going this way and that way, and got off course. Of course, radar back then was zip.
Yeah.
And and another thing, we were the last ones to make the jump, the 507 Parachute Infantry Regiment. And like one of the fellows told me once, he says, Howard, he says, the reason we had so much problems is those fellows that jumped before us stirred up that bunch of bees, the Germans.
Yeah.
I landed 10 to 12 miles from where I was supposed to.
Made for a long walk, huh?
Well, yes, it was, but I rode a little bit in the Jeep too. And I fought the first day when I hit the ground, I wasn't too far from a German farmhouse. I say a German farmhouse. The Germans were occupying this French farmhouse, and I could hear the Germans hollering, "Muck schnell, tut sweet Americanos." So that, and then I met 4 or 5 other fellows from my airplane, and we got together, and finally it was about 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. We heard some noise coming from across the flooded area, and it was an American tank. And he come up the road, and we had a fluorescent piece of fluorescent that was orange, and we waved it, and they waved back, and so they wouldn't open up. But they opened up with 50 caliber machine guns along the road. They had to stop at the bridge on their side because the Germans had the bridge mined. And they opened up along the road there, and when we got out to the road, why, there was a bunch of Germans out there that weren't moving anymore. Yeah, they just mowed them down. Then we fought there for a while around this little town of Pooperville. And in the afternoon, probably 3, 4 o'clock, why we marched these prisoners that we had, maybe 50 to 75, toward down the road that the tank came up on, and we took them down on Utah Beach. And we strung up some barbed wire and put them in there. And I was at the head of this column, and we had these prisoners standing there, and one of them spoke to me, and he said he'd went to college in New York, and he could speak pretty good English. And he says, "We're all going to die." I said, "You so-and-sos, you started this years ago, we'll all die together." Yes, years ago, that was in 44 when that picture was taken. Of course, we had photographers that jumped with us, and from different newspapers. And then fellows from the headquarters company, they took photography pictures also. And I bought a book about 5 years ago that was put out by a fellow from Belgium about D-Day. And I got it home and got it in the mail, and I looked at it, and that picture hit me right between the eyes. I told the wife, I says, "I was there." She says, "Where?" "Right here."
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
What made me realize it was the picture I was in was that plume of smoke that came up, black smoke. And whether it was an 88 or from a German 88 or a American mine that this truck hit, loaded with ammunition, when it came up on the shore, I'll never know. Nobody else will know either.
Yeah.
Because it blew.
For our younger viewers who may not know too much about Operation Overlord D-Day, as you hit the beaches, several different beaches, Omaha and the others, you guys, you guys jumped at night
Yes.
behind the enemy because you had to keep a supply road open, correct?
Yes,
So also so they couldn't bring in reinforcements.
there was no front line there.
Yeah.
We jumped in amongst the Germans.
Yeah. But there was a road that you wanted to cut off the other enemy from
There
reinforcements.
was 2 roads, one that went through St. Lo and St. Maria Glees. The Lafier Causeway, it's called.
Yeah, that's the one where you guys really had
The 505 and General Gavin, they had the best jump that was there in Normandy. That regiment was pretty well together when they jumped. And so they set up around the Lafier Causeway and kept the Germans from coming across to Utah Beach. And St. Lo was maybe 5 miles from there. That was another one that went to Utah Beach. Those roads had to be blocked off so the Germans couldn't get any tanks.
right, and that was
heavy
your
equipment.
mission. That was your mission.
That was our mission, yes. Utah Beach was the paratroopers' mission.
You've had 5 brothers and 2 sisters, right? And then you had a brother served in the Marines.
Yes, in the Marines and one in the Air Corps. It's called the Air Corps back then.
No, it's the Air Force. But, I hear you have a poster of you in Oklahoma at the Airborne School.
Yes.
I do my homework on you, you know. I know a lot about you. And you also got to meet the president, President Obama. And you've been over there 6 times. 6 times you've gone back?
Well, the first time was free.
Oh.
I went over, that was back in '43.
Oh, yeah,
That was a free ride from the
free
government.
ride. Yeah.
Yeah,
But they wouldn't land the plane. You had to jump out at 400 feet in the dark.
No, we took a boat over there.
Oh, yeah. That's right, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
You jumped out of a C-47 plane. From what I
Yes.
understand, there were like 11,590 aircraft that were used on D-Day.
Yes, yes.
Anything that could fly flew.
Just about, yeah. Just about anything that could fly.
So tell us a little more about the Causeway. And, you know, you took a lot of prisoners, like you said. And then your job was the Causeway. How did you get out of it? How long were you there? And
Well, the 505 defended the causeway to keep the Germans from coming across, and they were there until the 7th. You know, we jumped the 5th, 6th, and the 7th. And then the 8th, we replaced them. And before they had knocked 3 tanks out on that causeway that the Germans tried to get across. And several times they tried, and they shelled the causeway. And the German 88 was one of the worst pieces of artillery that was out there, bar none. The United States couldn't even come close to theirs.
yeah, they had
That was like a rifle. But then we relieved them of the causeway and took over. And General Gavin, on the morning of the 9th, General Gavin told the 325th glider group to go across the causeway. They went across, but there was no communication back. Did they make it?
I don't think so. I don't know. Tell me.
Nobody knows.
Oh, okay.
But we had some troops on the other side, but they were surrounded by the Germans and they couldn't do anything in Timmy's Orchard. But then Gavin, he's getting itchy, and he comes to Captain Ray, which was captain of the 507 Parachute Infantry Regiment. Well, I never knew Captain Ray. We lost our captain. He got killed the first day. So they gave us Captain Ray. I never knew Captain Ray.
Yeah.
He gives orders to Captain Ray to go across. Where's the 325th? So we went across. Don't ask me how I got there. I don't know. I know I got across. I can remember being on the other side. I can remember going around one of the tanks. I can remember my buddies laying there. That causeway took, according to the archives, 500 bodies.
Wow.
500 soldiers. And today I think, was it worth it? I don't know. Was it?
Well, sir, let me tell you. You're part of the greatest generation. Anything we have today, we owe to people like you.
Well, that's
and
what.
I'm glad you made it back. And I want to see these photos before we run out of time. So why don't you show me what we got here?
That's what Brokaw says. The greatest generation.
Yeah, he's right. He's right. I have several uncles who were part of that. And
what do you want to know?
Well, let's hold it up here, so like that. And now
this is where I went into Camp Custer, Fort Benning, Fort Custer.
First went in.
Yes.
That's in Michigan.
This is in basic training in Camp Wheeler, Georgia. But look at the waistline.
Yeah. What's all that?
Well, this is my brother Carl here. Uh-huh. And this is me now. Look at the waistline.
Yeah, it made a difference out of you. Didn't it?
After I went through basic training in the Paratrooper. This here was taken in 1945, right after the war, in Essen, Germany. And this one here is, I think I'm on the Fear Causeway here on this one.
Yeah, that's one of your return trips when you went back. You have several friends in France and all the other countries, no?
Oh, I've got friends all over.
Yeah.
I've even had people from Germany call me, or, well, not call me, but on the internet. And I've got them in the Netherlands, Belgium, the last ones in Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia.
You guys get around, huh?
Well, I'm on the internet quite a few places.
Oh, yeah? Where would we find you on the internet?
Well, up at the top, just put my name in.
Okay.
And punch on it.
All right. And the war got over, you got out, or did you stay in, or?
No, when the war ended, they sent 507 and the 17th Airborne back to the States and relieved them of their duties. And I was short a few points, and they sent me to Berlin, Germany for occupation duty. Mm-hmm. And I was put into the 505 of the 82nd Airborne Headquarters Company. I was made a staff sergeant. Never got paid for it. I had to wear the stripes.
That's the way the government works, isn't it?
You know of a good attorney?
No.
Huh?
It's too late now.
Yeah, but look at we could live off
Back money's interest?
we could live off the interest.
Yeah.
While I was staff sergeant, they give us a furlough and they flew us down to Naples in southern France, and I had to wear the stripes, and I'll tell you, I was worried.
Why?
If I'd have been picked up by the EMPs, where would I be? I didn't have any papers that I was a staff sergeant.
Yeah. They didn't trust you?
But that other guy with the 2 bars on his shoulder made me wear. He didn't care either.
Yeah.
But this was taken after I got home from the service. This is just a few of pictures.
I'm sure you have a ton of them.
I got thousands of them.
Yeah. Well, there's going to be a big thing at the Carriage Museum. I hope I'm going to see you out there.
Well, I hope I can make it.
But when you got out of the service, you went into civilian life. What did you do in civilian life? You go back to Michigan?
Oh,
and you met a lovely young lady who was sitting over on the side that nobody can see.
Have you ever heard of a master of all trades? My brother-in-law and I started a used car business. Then I got out of that, and I went back into construction. That's before I went into the service. I was in construction. Then I went to work for a tank outfit that made big storage tanks for petroleum and one thing another. I worked for them until Uncle Sam called me. And then when I got back out of the service, I started the used car lot up, went onto the police department for 12.5 years. One day, and I come to give it up, went into the home building business, done that for 10 years. Give that up, laid around a year, put my wife to work.
You couldn't hold a job, huh?
No, I didn't. I didn't want to hold a job.
Well, you got the right part there. Put your wife to work. That's a good thing to do.
Well, then my last 10 years, I went to the school department, and I was the head carpenter in charge of maintenance. And then when I got to be 65 years old, I decided to retire. And there's a time. Well, then I thought, well, how am I going to live on this little piddly wood that I got? Do you know, the hardest thing I've done since then?
What's that, sir?
Get out of bed in the morning and go get something to eat.
Well, I'm glad you're getting to enjoy your retirement. Unfortunately,
I've been retired since '88, and
yeah. Unfortunately, Howard, we're out of time. This half hour flew. And I'll tell you what, it's really...
Where's my drink?
We got to get off the air first.
We're not on the air.
Well, I want to thank you for sharing your story with us. I'm so glad you came back. I'm so glad I got to meet you. And like I said, we have to go. So to all our veterans out there, our active military and their families, we salute you. Till next time. Thanks, my friend.
Let us know what you want us to present in our future programs. Please call Lakefront TV at 352-728-9707 with your programming ideas and suggestions.